Namaste, this is Ananta Ripa Ajmera, and welcome back to the True to Yourself podcast, a place where we explore the power of authentic living. Today, I am going to share with you about what is, first of all, the nature of the true self, and then 3 timeless paths from the ancient Vedic spiritual tradition to embody your true self in daily life. First of all, let's just discuss what is the true self and how is it different from the false self. In the Vedas, the soul or the higher self or the true self, if you will, is known to be 3 primary things. It is known to be Sat, which means truth. It is Chit, which means consciousness. And it is Ananda, which is a joy that has no opposite of sorrow. The nature of the soul is truth, consciousness, and absolute bliss. How do we reach this state? Most of us have at least gone through periods of our lives where we don't really feel connected to truth. We don't really feel conscious, and we definitely don't feel blissful. I know I have definitely been there on my personal journey, and I have personally really benefited from practicing these 3 paths to unlock and unfold my own true self. In the Vedas, we actually know these 3 paths as paths of yoga. That is correct. Yoga is not just limited to physical asanas that you do on a mat to become some kind of a pretzel shape. Yoga is actually a very, very high practice per the Vedas. When we talk about yoga in the ancient Vedic spiritual tradition, it literally means to unite us with our true self. We are talking about the process of actually joining with our true self. In this sense, yoga is the ultimate science that leads us to unite with who we really are as an eternal spiritual being. Interestingly, the word religion comes from 2 root words, ri and ligare. And these 2 root words together mean the same meaning as that of yoga, to return us back to our true self. This is the purpose of all of the world's great religions and spiritual systems of philosophy. Per the Vedas, the paths are many, but the destination is one. And that destination is not a place, but an experience. And that experience is of the ultimate reality, or the truth with a capital T, which is the eternalness of the soul. When we talk about the practice of yoga in its highest sense, yoga is the process of actually returning back to our original state of divinity. In all of the world's religions, desire is depicted as the demon in the mind that blocks us from experiencing our true self and our true divine nature. Desire, therefore, is what we actually need to really battle with in order to unlock the truth, the consciousness, and the bliss that live within us as our true self. When we talk about desires, they are stemming from a space of where we feel somehow incomplete. And we believe that we need pleasures of the body to fulfill us. We believe that we need emotional comfort and approval and validation and money and fame and attention from other people to fill that void within us. when we come from a space of desire, even the beautiful spiritual teachings themselves can be something that we simply consume with a mentality of knowing in order to prove our worthiness and to show how valuable we are by the book knowledge we have gained. The Vedas themselves therefore caution us against reading the scriptures or even memorizing the scriptures blindly. We have to approach the spiritual knowledge, especially, which is at the intellectual level, in a way that is experiential. We need to approach spirituality in a way where we surrender ourselves to become one with it. That prevents us from getting into a desire of, again, wanting approval and attention and power and recognition because we have spoken the words of great sages, where we may speak those words but not actually live out or even quite honestly understand their true meaning in our lives. This is potentially the most dangerous desire of all because we're so close to reaching our true self, but we are actually getting blocked by the very gift of knowledge that would, if we struggled within ourselves to actually embody it, set us free to really be our true self in every possible way. Therefore, these three desires at the body level for bodily comforts like food and sex and traveling the world and having all these physical experiences can be a bondage to realizing our true self. Our emotional comfort and security that we seek out even through our families, through our friends, through our work, through our social media accounts is a block to really unfolding our true self. How many times have you said something to someone that actually wasn't true for you, but you said it simply to appease the other, to please the other, to gain their love, approval, or attention? I can definitely raise my hand here and admit that I had done it many times until I realized I was losing parts of myself every time I did it. And I decided that it was really important for me to stop doing it and to start really radically approving of my own self and my own thoughts, speech, and actions, which are the 3 seats of karma. I made that promise to myself that I will be on this journey to learn and continue to really embrace being fearlessly true to me, at the cost of whatever may come as a result of it. I definitely went through a lot of challenges as a result of making that commitment to myself, but I have to say that the rewards of doing so have been so incredible, and they have freed me so much from that prison of the mind that I used to really feel stuck and trapped in. I feel so much more aligned with my true self and so much more joyful for no particular reason, but simply because I am committed to this journey and to this path of unlocking who I am and living by my own set of values, which are not even my own, but they are rooted in the ancient Vedic spirituality. And they have really given me quite an incredible anchor through many storms and challenges. When we think about this third desire at the intellectual level, this was an important one for me to remain really vigilant about as I went through, especially many years of spiritual study in a lineage setting. A lot of people in that setting, unfortunately, wanted to become great scholars only and be able to recite the words, but not actually live the meaning or the practice of the spirituality that was meant to set us free. Therefore, in engaging in the study, I continuously set intentions for myself that I will really embody each and every bit of this. I really embraced the belief that an ounce of practice is worth more than a ton of theory. The three main practices that I learned and lived and continue to strive to practice in a higher and higher way are called Karma Yoga, the path of action, Bhakti Yoga, the path of devotion, and Jnana Yoga, which is the path of knowledge of the true self. These three paths of yoga are such incredible paths to follow to be able to give less and less power to our physical, emotional, and intellectual desires that, when unexamined, really do keep us trapped in other people's likes and dislikes, approvals and disapprovals. We don't even know after a point what we feel is right or what we feel is true because we're so used to catering to what another wants of us. But desire itself, whether it's a desire from our own self or wanting to fulfill the desires of others for us because of a desire for their love, security, or approval, are really big obstacles that are invisible and therefore truly need to be, first of all, made aware of through the lens of awareness. And then through the power of awareness, we have to transcend them. The paths of yoga give us the roadmap to be able to rise above our desires and to, first of all, pitch up higher desires to be able to anchor us in what are known as ideals. An ideal is something that anchors your mind in something that goes well beyond your personal self-centered desires. Pitching up a higher ideal for your life is the essence of the path of karma yoga. When we talk about karma yoga, it is the path of action. The word karma itself in Sanskrit means action. We all have to act. As long as we are here in the human body, it is an imperative to act. Even to maintain the health of our physical body and our minds, we must do something. We cannot just remain inactive. There is no such thing as not doing anything in the Vedic spiritual tradition even. When we're practicing spiritual practices, we are active with them. We are practicing actions that will transcend karma ultimately. This is a really, really interesting idea. In the Vedic spiritual teachings of Vedanta, which means the final portion of the Vedas, we learn that there are three types of actions. One type of action is known as selfish action, which is prompted by self-centered desires for some recognition, for some money, for some fame, name, pleasure, you name it. You can fill in the blanks with maybe what desire is coming to mind for you right now. And we look at that desire and we actually, can't let go of those. We need to identify that they are there. Once we identify that they are there, we have the awareness activated, and then we learn that we actually cannot really let go of the desire. We can only take up a higher desire. So then what we do with it is actually set a higher intention for our spiritual growth that impacts as many people and beings as possible. This empowers us to feel anchored and connected to something personally meaningful that keeps us out of the traps of our self-centered desires, which lead to, negative or positive outcomes based on whether they are positive desires or negative ones. If they are purely self-centered, they are usually going to be negative. The second type of action are the unselfish actions that we take that are actually usually very positive. These actions already move us out of the selfish zone because they benefit our community. We develop a desire to be of service through giving food to those who are hungry. We start to serve in homeless shelters. We do things to take care of local animals who don't have a home or a voice in our community. We sincerely have a desire to help, to serve, and to uplift others, and maybe even to uplift all others. We therefore will typically generate good karma from these kinds of unselfish desires, which have the want for other people's happiness and well-being and security and protection. These kinds of actions will bring us back positive karma. We will experience that we are then protected and cared for and loved in times of great difficulty. It's not because of anything but the law of karma and our own positive karma coming back to us. But if we really want to be free, and if we really want to be aligned with our deepest self, with our true self, what we are guided to do is to actually take actions that are without desires. These are also known as desireless actions. They are actions with no personal desire, positive or negative, prompting them. Desireless actions are those that are in service of our higher ideal. They are actions that we take simply because we feel that we ought to do them. If we have a gift for teaching, for example, then we ought to express that gift and to offer that gift by simply teaching, not for any name, fame, recognition, money, approval, or whatnot, but simply because we have been given this blessing from the divine. And so our attitude in our selfless actions is to offer the gift back to that divine essence. There are two attitudes that are essential to the practice of karma yoga. One attitude is to perceive and receive every experience, whether positive or negative, as a gift from the divine. And then the second attitude is to act in such a way, to speak in such a way, and even to think in such a way that we are making our thoughts, our words, and our actions into a gift or an offering to the divine essence, which lives everywhere and in every being. This practice of karma yoga goes beautifully with the next path of yoga, which is the path of bhakti yoga, or the yoga of devotion. When we are practicing the yoga of devotion, we are really considering, as we make an offering back to the divine, that everything actually is divinity, and therefore we fill our hearts with that emotion of love and oneness towards all living beings. Bhakti yoga is a kind of devotion that is really a faith in goodness, even above and beyond God. There's a really beautiful story or poem rather, that I had read and learned about in Swami Parthasarthi's e-learning program for Vedanta. It's a poem by a poet named James Henry Lee Hunt, and it really beautifully illustrates the essence of Bhakti Yoga. It is called Abu Ben Adam. Abu Ben Adam, may his tribe increase, awoke one night from a deep dream of peace, and saw within the moonlight in his room, making it rich and like a lily in bloom, an angel writing in a book of gold. Exceeding peace had made Ben Adam bold, and to the presence in the room he said, "What writest thou?" The vision raised its head, and with a look made of all sweet accord, answered, "The names of those who love the Lord." "And is mine one?" said Abu. "Nay, not so," replied the angel. Abu spoke more low, but cheerily still, and said, "I pray thee then, write me as one that loves his fellow men." The angel wrote and vanished. The next night it came again with a great wakening light, and showed the names whom love of God had blessed. And lo, Ben Adam's name led all the rest. It's a really, really beautiful poem about how we want to practice devotion towards all living beings. And this is really challenging to do when we come across living beings who wish to hurt us or who have hurt us. It doesn't mean to become a doormat. It actually means to inwardly harbor compassion and love for the other by first having love and compassion for our own self. And then, even as we are doing what is needed to protect ourselves and to protect our spiritual journey in this lifetime, we will do so from an inner space that is free from resentment, that is free from anger and animosity, because these are the qualities that keep us in bondage. There's actually a really beautiful story in the Vedic spiritual tradition about exactly what it means to really embody love towards all while also treating people in a way that is appropriate for the situation and in a way that protects ourselves in the process. I feel it's important to share so that this understanding of Bhakti Yoga does not get misinterpreted as become a doormat. It's really, really important because I know from personal experience, I did become like a doormat at some point on the spiritual journey. And I did feel that I needed to just love everyone no matter how badly they were treating me. When I heard this story, however, it made everything so clear to me how I need to be. It's really interesting because this story is actually about a snake. And one of the meanings of my spiritual name, Ananta, is that of the king of the Naga serpents. So I felt that when I read the story, wow, this story was written for me, and I really need to understand it and to live by it. I will actually just share this with you so that you can also experience the clarity that it provides in terms of how we want to interact in a balanced way, in a way that is going to be appropriate to our situations. In Swami Parthasarthi's amazing book, the Vedanta Treatise, He shares this story on page 118 to 119. A parable explains the effect of unwise expression of emotion. A serpent lived in the outskirts of a village. It was a menace to the villagers. It attacked and poisoned many of them. One day, a sage passed that way. The serpent charged out of its hideout. It was about to strike. The sage stood unperturbed. The assailant recognized the divine person and begged his pardon. The good man advised it not to be hateful and cruel and create so much disharmony. The serpent repented its aggression and vowed to live peacefully. Days later, the sage returned the same way and found the creature lacerated with wounds. He inquired as to the cause of its pathetic state. The serpent replied ungrudgingly, "Sir, I merely followed your wise counsel, expressed my love to one and all. The villagers pelted me with stones and brought me to this condition." The wise man rejoined, "I am sorry I had not conveyed my message properly. I did ask you to live in harmony with others, but not to express your love indiscriminately. Without a feeling of hatred, you should have hissed and driven them away." So it is with life. We must learn to manifest our inner feelings and our devotion with discretion and caution. Our intellect must always be active. And the intellect is actually what is developed through the third path of yoga, which is the path of Jnana Yoga in Sanskrit. The path of Jnana Yoga is also known as the path of knowledge. When we talk about the path of knowledge, we're talking about spiritual knowledge, the knowledge of who am I? How did this world come about? What is the origin of living beings? Who is God? And how can I relate to that God? When we are on the path of knowledge with Jnana Yoga, we are practicing one sadhana or spiritual practice primarily, and that is of discernment. We are doing what the famous poet-philosopher Shankaracharya called Nitya Anitya Viveka Vichara, which is a fancy Sanskrit way of saying reflecting or contemplating or discerning on the difference or the distinction between that which is eternal and that which is ephemeral. We are constantly in the practice of the yoga of knowledge, trying to uncloud our mind of its confusions and its ignorance about its true nature. When we are overwhelmed with physical desires, we start to identify with them. When the body feels cold, we think we are cold. When the body goes through disease, we feel that we are diseased. We identify with that. We have so many labels even for it, that I am anxious, I am anorexic, I am bulimic, I am diabetic, right? We label ourselves, and society gives us these labels for ourselves if we are identifying with the body. If we are, say, having a lot of anger, then we could identify with this emotion. I'm an angry person, or I'm a joyful person, or I'm a XYZ person, right? And then if we're looking at the intellectual level, we can start to wrongly identify ourselves there as well. I am a scholar. I am, someone who has a PhD, and we get real into our PhD ego. But what the path of knowledge is supporting us to do is to, at a really, really deep level, go beyond our attachments to our identification with the changing body, with the changing mind, with the changing intellect itself as well, so that we can ultimately experience our true nature, which goes beyond all of this, and which is Sat, truth, which is Chit, consciousness, and which is Ananda, the pure bliss, which has no opposite. We actually use our intellect in the practice of the yoga of knowledge to discern what are those actions, what are those texts to read, who are the people to spend time with that will bring me closer and closer to that experience of my true nature, which is consciousness and which is bliss. That is what it means to discern between what is eternal and what is ephemeral. This is ultimately what brings us then to an experience of our true nature as bliss. When our intellect, our subtle intellect, as it's called, is so well developed, we can actually more easily practice karma yoga and practice bhakti yoga. We will more easily and more readily with practice start to see our challenges and start to see even those who mistreat us as our gifts from the divine, to realize that which goes beyond insult or injury, which is the soul that can never be affected by anything the body goes through, by anything we feel emotionally, or by anything we think and cognize at the mental level. I am so grateful for all the years I spent learning these practices and really striving through constantly remembering them all and surrendering with bhakti yoga to seeing how the divine manifests in ways that go beyond my understanding even. I really benefited from them when I was faced with challenges and difficulties. I really got to experience the power of these practices to face them in such a way that I actually truly feel grateful for each person who betrayed me, for every person who lied to me, and for every bully I faced in my life. Without their presence in my life, I would not have worked so hard to be able to go within myself and unlock my own true essence. I also got to experience, in the face of all of the negativity that came to me and all the challenges that came to me, this uninterrupted connection with what is true. And even now, as I face challenges and difficulties, I do find that there is this undercurrent always of an uninterrupted bliss, ananda, a joy of life. I can even sometimes laugh about things that would have truly upset me and, pushed all my buttons and triggered me like no other had I not had these practices. Now I just kind of laugh and I'm like, okay, this is interesting, divine, that you want to manifest as this particular situation that is not easy for me to face. But I'm just going to roll with it and I'm going to make the best of it. I think one example I can share was about the presence of lots of cockroaches in my previous apartment in New York City. I don't love them, so my bhakti yoga was not there. And my devotion and feeling of oneness with all beings, initially it wasn't there. But then I learned all different ways to manage the situation. I learned that I could not even have a drop of water in my home because all these creatures were really looking for was a little bit of water and a little bit of food for their survival. When I saw it that way, I understood it, and that helped me to then take the actions that I needed to do to prevent their arrival to my abode. But then, honestly, after doing that, I actually wanted to know what is the spiritual meaning and symbolism of a cockroach. It can't just be here by accident. This cockroach actually may be telling me something by showing up so consistently and making its presence known to me. What if this cockroach actually is a messenger of that divine essence? In daring to ask that question, which was informed by all the years of spiritual practice that I had, I actually had incredible revelations get revealed to me about the symbolism of cockroaches. I looked it up online, cockroach as spirit animal or spirit guide, and sure enough, there was all kinds of literature that reflected how seeing a cockroach is a symbol of a rebirth going on in your life, because the cockroaches are very difficult to kill. They keep reinventing themselves, they keep showing up, and therefore they also symbolize the power of rejuvenation. When I read that, and when I read some other meanings of cockroaches, I cannot tell you how much joy I felt and how I really truly felt blessed by them. I felt that, wow, I'm so glad that this attitude of devotion and taking everything as a gift from the divine had inspired me to find out what was it that kept coming and what message was I meant to receive. I had actually gone through a lot of rejuvenation and really a lot of rebirth during this whole period when the cockroaches were coming. So I'm like, okay, I get it, divine essence. You were trying to communicate to me through the medium of these cockroaches. And now I will never see cockroaches in the same way. They will actually fill my heart with a kind of joy that I truly never ever in a million years thought I would have in seeing such creatures. So this is just one kind of silly example, but I think it's a profound one because it shows a journey from aversion to cockroaches, which is symbolic of aversion to any kind of challenge or difficulty, to one of acceptance of everything, including the difficulty, as a gift from the divine, and then unpacking that gift, feeling blessed by the gift, and feeling that that gift actually brought me really close to my true self. It validated for me. It pushed me towards that rebirth experience because I know that I am an eternal soul. I know that I'm not limited to this body. No matter how many issues my body may have gone through, I am not this body. I am not the mind, and even any negative feelings I may have had initially come up about the cockroaches. I was just able to transcend all of that and then really transcend it more. And it was just a practice that kept on increasing until, finally when I really, really just felt so joyful that I was blessed with these creatures. Well, I also did what I could to prevent them, so they stopped coming then. I took it as, okay, I learned the lesson. And now, even though I've moved out of that place and I, knock on wood, have not seen any as of yet, I'm open to whatever creatures I see and whatever lessons they have for me. I'm open to people who say no to me, people who make fun of me, people who, say bad things about me. They are just giving me an opportunity to transcend the desire for emotional approval or validation or security. And in transcending that desire, I get to know my true self. I get to experience my true power, which is not the power that I get from other people saying, hey, Ananta, you're so powerful, right? My power is not something someone can give me or someone can validate for me. Power is my true nature. Power is the true nature of every living being, including my friends, the cockroaches. Power is part of the package of the soul. It is the true power, the true joy, the true vitality, the true spiritual essence that we all have deep down inside. And it's only with the difficulties that we truly get to know it. It's also only in practicing the karma yoga, the path of action, bhakti yoga, the path of devotion, and jnana yoga, the path of knowledge, that we can overcome our own desires so that we can ultimately know our true self. We are able to, with these paths and with this practice of, first of all, developing higher desires and then eventually maturing into acting in a way that's even free from desires, but by simply just doing what we ought to do, we get to experience this incredible peace and this incredible joy that really are our true nature. I just feel so, so grateful and blessed to have learned these paths and practices for living in a way that is truly brave and bold and authentic. It is not always easy. I will say that. I have paid a high price for my freedom and for my living in alignment with my true self. But my friends, I can tell you from the bottom of my heart and from the depth of my being that it was and it is worth every cent. Thank you so much for joining me on this second episode of the True to Yourself podcast. I am so delighted to have this opportunity to share with you the gifts that I have received. I also would love to extend a warm welcome to you if you feel called to join the 1-year online Wellness Ambassador program, where we have a beautiful community of souls from all over the world who are gathering together every Saturday to learn how to embody the beautiful sunlit path of Ayurveda lifestyle, to live in alignment with nature's cosmic rhythms. You can actually learn more about this program by visiting my organization's website. It is theancientway.co/wellness-ambassador. You can also feel free to book a one-on-one complimentary 15-minute session with me via The Well, a beautiful wellness space where I am so happy and grateful to serve as the director of Ayurveda. You can go to the-well.com/Ayurveda. I have direct links also in the show notes for you. And I also encourage you to feel free to follow along with me on Instagram or Facebook if you use these platforms, where I am at ananta.1. Thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to connecting with you again very soon. Namaste.